Welcome back to another episode of Journey, a MedPro podcast. We are so excited to have you with us. My name is Vanessa, and I'm joined today by our guest, Emmi. Emmi has been working in healthcare for 35 years. She's been an RN for 20, and she's been with MedPro for 3 years. So we're really excited to have her here with us today and share a little bit of her insight with us. So Emmi, I want to kind of give the floor to you first and tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at MedPro.
Sure. I'm a nurse. Everything you said is actually right on point. I just told the story earlier today. I started in healthcare by lying on an application when I was 13 years old so that they would give me a job. It was in a hospital. Back then we didn't call it that, but it was essentially a CNA. And then took different paths always through healthcare until 20 years ago I became a nurse. And my specialty is ER trauma. That's where my heart has always been. And then life happens like always and to everybody. And I found myself looking for a non-bedside position. In other words, not taking care of patients, but still working as a nurse. And here I am in MedPro. So now here I've also been a couple of different positions, and most recently, I'm now the director of clinical services here at MedPro. So that's my newest job title.
That's
and
awesome.
Brand new to it.
All right. Great. Yeah. So I know, like I said, you joined MedPro 3 years ago, and in that time you've grown a lot. And I think that a lot of nurses especially are interested in, okay, what does nursing career path actually mean? What does that look like? Which direction can I go? So tell me a little bit about what got you into bedside in the first place, and then what ended up leading you down the path of more the corporate side of things.
Sure. Okay. So that age-old question, like, why did you become a nurse? I don't know. I was a child. It made sense. It looked fun. It looked interesting. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. You got to start somewhere. And then at some point, I realized that the doctor route wasn't really for me. Now, I will tell you, the nurse route wasn't for me for many years of my adult life. I ended up after all that sort of pivoting, and I ended up as a first assist in an OR and did that for 10 years or so and thought that's where it would end. And then I got this wild idea to go to nursing school and knew that I would end up in ER, right? That's what I did. And so that was my nursing career. I like to be in the hustle bustle. I want to meet the people and do this and learn more and touch things and see things and hear it and teach it and the newest and greatest and stay on top of it. And so I thought that the only option to do all of those things and keep loving it was to stay at the bedside.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked through the bedside up into the fabulous times of COVID. And then the world changed.
Yeah.
For me, for many, for everybody, for nursing. And then I needed to find something different. And so this is a super strange transition for me. And now being in it, I think it's so logical. And we spend all these years talking to one another as nurses about the possibilities are endless, which routes we can take. I was limiting myself. I really, as many options as I thought we had as nurses, I had no idea how many options we had as nurses. And in 2024, with telehealth and technology and artificial intelligence apps and all of these developments and things, different areas of the world, different areas of the community, forget it. If this was about you asking me what could a nurse do with her degree, we'd be here for a couple of episodes. It's just how it is. And I got to tell you, it's one of the things I love most about nursing.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said, because you said, you mentioned COVID, right? And I know that there are a lot of nurses who also, and a lot of healthcare professionals as a whole that work through that time. And there are a lot of people coming into it now, post-COVID. So, for those people that are adjusting to life post-pandemic, working in the healthcare system, what would be your advice for them?
Um, you know, I guess we don't call ourselves old nurses, we call ourselves seasoned nurses, those of us who have been here for a few years or so. I think that we, as seasoned nurses, feel that the nurses of today, the last few years that have graduated in the last, let's say, 3 years, sort of miss some of the things that we had. And I wish they had those opportunities. So, for example, the way the hierarchy goes, how the training works, the expectations of training in a new graduate are very different then than they are now. Um, However, I also think that the newest grads right now are learning in a different environment. So, many of us when we went to nursing schools, there weren't simulation labs and all of this very cool methodology to be able to learn quickly and hands-on without touching human beings and then being embarrassed and having to get through all of that. So I think that the newest nurses, I would say to them, pick the brains of every seasoned nurse in every type of nursing that you can, because I do it now. I, as a seasoned nurse, like to talk to newer nurses. What are you guys doing now? How's that in school? What'd you do? So did you have a preceptor? What are they doing for training? Are they all these different questions? Because I grew up, and when I say grew up, I mean as a nurse, from a baby nurse all the way through, grew up in an environment where if you stop learning, you stop nursing. And so I want them to have that hunger. And I think that COVID sort of made us a little too desperate for people, and we were throwing people out there, and we didn't give them the opportunities that I had. And if they pick the brains of people, they will realize, oh, well, I didn't, nobody ever said that. Nobody ever took the time to do that. I was in school and they sent me right into a COVID unit or into the hospital to cover for other nurses that maybe were out sick. And then they went into travel right away, and they never had the opportunity to, like, feel like they were part of the founding fathers of a hospital unit and being able to train newer nurses and have those experiences. So I would tell them to learn what it was like before and why that was valuable and how those experiences apply to what I feel has been a really strong and happy nursing career, and that way they could experience it as well, or at least seek out opportunities for something similar
Yeah.
or something or new that they don't know is even out there for them.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. So, I mean, it is a learning profession, right? Like you said, if you stop learning, you stop nursing. So
Absolutely.
I can see the value in talking to people who have had experiences that are different from yours, whether it's a seasoned nurse speaking to someone who just came out of school with all the simulations and the labs and
Right.
all of that, versus talking to someone who maybe has been in the field much longer. And so you have an opportunity to learn from them and the pre-pandemic and pandemic and all of that. And here at MedPro, right, we have our whole international explorers who are coming from overseas and bringing that experience and
That's
what
right.
that is like, what nursing is like in other countries, and just taking the
sure.
time to learn from each other.
And we're talking right now, or at least I was talking really about nurses in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
The minute you start broadening that, oh well, there's telehealth, school nursing, oh I work for the military. I mean, you can. It never ends, and so if you don't realize that there's that much opportunity out there, golly, you really sort of corner yourself into one path, and it's not worth it. Nursing, when I say keep learning, I mean even like the other specialty, well, I didn't even know I liked babies. Maybe I need to go check that out and see and what's going on. And then some friend of yours is like, oh yeah, I'm in a program and getting certification in infusion. What do you mean infusion? Oh, well, I have this little side hustle where I go to people's houses and I'm able to, oh, well, yeah, I make a decent living. Oh, well, what's that for? What, and how do you do that? And where do you get that certification? If you don't have conversations, you never find out about those things. And so you miss out. And I don't know. I learned about this, for example, working at MedPro was a fluke. My original job here was clinical nurse liaison, and I had never even heard of that title. And you read a job description, and like most job description, it gives you a vague idea. Then you get in it. Now it's real world. how does this apply to this job? Oh, it's in staffing industry. What's the staffing industry? What can you do for me? I thought, oh, like a recruiter, but having a little more clinical knowledge. You see what I mean? So the more you talk, the more you learn, and then you grow, and we've taken it from there. And so, and I'm learning so much about so many other things in nursing by being in this role, even though I'm not in the hospital and not taking care of patients like the traditional nurse role that I think most people think of when they hear nurse.
Yeah. I think that's so important, right? Because when you look at the public image of nursing, a lot of that's what comes to mind,
Right,
is
of
that
course.
very traditional hospital bedside role. And there are so many opportunities that are just going to continue to grow as the world changes, right? Like you said, telehealth,
Also,
home health, travel, all of that. So, with that, I do want to talk a little bit about travel, right? This is a booming industry at the end of the day, and we're constantly changing. Again, COVID was interesting time for travel as well, and all of the travel nurses that helped out in regions that were just very overwhelmed, and hospitals that were very overwhelmed. And so I do want to talk about, what would you tell a nurse that's considering going into the travel career? What would that conversation look like?
um, it's interesting because when you asked that, the first thing in my head was, should I answer as a nurse or should I answer from my role here in staffing? It's not the same answer because of the approach. So I think that traditionally, when I came out of school, nursing school, I thought I wanted to go into travel. It seemed fantastic to me. I was like, oh, you're in a different place and it's short term, and I don't have to get into the nitty gritty of politics. I really can just go and do what I love and be a nurse. And so there was a lot of pros to that. And at the time, the requirements were, you have to be a nurse for so much longer and be so much more experienced. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there. And the minute it's my 5-year anniversary, I'm going to go ahead and call an agency. And that time came and went, and I loved my job, and there was no need for me to travel, and I was that person, and I became that type of nurse. I think that now, so to travel, you already had to be a nurse for 5 years and decide at that point, like, okay, I want to leave this. I'm happy to leave this. I'm not. This is not a painful transition for me. In fact, I've been looking forward to this moment. And then they took the route of travel. I was the other nurse. I think that now it's different. The agency nursing is very different. It has morphed into something that is much more creative, and you can have less experience. We've learned that you don't have to learn how to do every single possible thing in your specialty to actually be a competent nurse that provides safe patient care, which is the goal. So we take on nurses that don't necessarily have the same traditional education or nurse upbringing that we thought was so imperative before. And because of that, now nursing staffing looks different. Travel nursing is different. It's its own specialty. You can talk to nurses, and some of them put in whatever time they needed to, and now they're travel nurses. And do they work usually in the same type of area of the hospital? Sure. But while they're there, they may be the types that are those overachievers, like, hey, I'm happy to float anywhere you need me. Now they start floating frequently to a different kind of what was their initial specialty, and they learn that, and now they're professional travel nurses. So I don't know. I think that this part of nursing has become real interesting. I would say come into this with the mindset of we need you to be not knowledgeable. You have to know your craft and you have to be passionate. But most importantly, be ready to be what is needed. We're here, we exist. Our company in particular and travel nurses are here to fill major gaps of necessity in the healthcare industry right now. And we need travelers out there, but we need travelers that understand what those gaps look like and are ready to embark on that journey. And that's not for everybody.
Sure.
But for the person that it's made for, they may do this forever. They may never ever put roots down.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a like you said, that becomes the career, that becomes the specialty.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I sometimes wish I had done it. I did take one small travel assignment. That's my experience in the past, but I didn't. I never did travel like I thought I wanted to. I didn't do that dream.
Yeah.
But I am happy to speak with travelers, and I hear, excuse me, I hear what they're doing out there right now, and the expectations. And because I'm on this side of things, I also know what the needs are and what we're looking for and what the concerns are and what the celebrations are. You know, we're looking at both sides of that. And that's the way that I, as a nurse, feel like I still support my nursing sisters and brothers out there by different role, but certainly we're all still same goal, right? Still goal in mind. At the end of the day, there's somebody.
Yeah.
That's the end of all of these paths. Yeah, somebody. So, and that's important. That makes this job important for me.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you are like you said, you've grown through several different roles here with the company, and so you've had many different conversations with many different types of nurses, and hearing about their experiences and, like you said, their successes, the challenges that come with it. But it's definitely a field where you can learn a lot very quickly, because you may end up floating somewhere else.
That's right.
And every hospital does, and we talked about this earlier, right? Every hospital does things a little different. So you might start at, blank hospital, and you travel to somewhere else, you're there for 13 weeks, and maybe you're on the same exact specialty, but you're using different equipment, or you're seeing totally different demographics of patients. So it's just still such a beautiful learning opportunity, because you get to see different perspectives, and you come back and you get to share it with somebody, right? The different experiences you've had.
This country's so big, right? And we have so many different cultures within our culture. So the nursing you can provide to a community at the regional trauma center that has a burn unit and is on every TV every time there's a shooting and a stabbing and whatever, is a very different kind of nursing that you can provide at the 20-bed hospital on a Native American reservation that is purely for that community, that immediate community. Now, so of course, right, you can think probably technology is different, probably the types of patients may be different, but at the core of all of it is our primary focus. We cannot lose sight on that focus, whether you're a travel nurse, med surg, ICU, 20-bed hospital, 2,000-bed hospital, and that's patient-centered care. And I think that we can learn so much. Our international nurses, our local grown nurses, it's patient-centered care. So I can talk to any nurse, anywhere, and we have at least one thing in common.
I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can be a nurse.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Get right on it.
Yeah, okay. Let me know. I'll be a reference.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, talking more about getting into the nursing field, like you said, the way we educate now has changed a lot. I know back when I was in college, and my college did have a pretty big nursing school, it was very different. It was just very competitive, very challenging for the people to get, very stressful. So, coming from a nursing student who just graduated, who made it, right? Who made it through nursing school and just graduated and is getting ready to start, what would you say to them so that those hurdles that you first catch as you're getting started in that new career field, that becomes the fuel to keep driving them forward versus a blockade, if you will?
I would not be true to myself if I did not disclose that I did not like one day of nursing school. So the first thing I would say is, you did it. For me, I think that the whole nursing education, at least initially, right? So whether you do a 2-year, 4-year degree, that's how we all start. You could become a registered nurse with either one of those educational paths, and then from there, of course, you could keep going to postgraduate work. I think if you've made it that far through a program that essentially is kind of like it felt like to me that I was kind of like being treated a little bit like a fifth grader, but expected to do kind of master's level work. And so there was this like back and forth. And actually, because of that, I almost bailed out a few times. I was like, I don't know if this is for me or not. Maybe I can listen. I've been in healthcare at that point for many years, and I could just keep doing what I've been doing and go back to that. That'll be fine by me. And then no, there was a calling. I was supposed to be there for a reason. And then once I got on the floor, I realized that prepped me for, we have a saying in the nursing community that we eat our own, or we eat our young, and that is almost like this like hazing thing, this unspoken hazing thing. I don't think that we do it nearly as much now, but there's a certain level of like earn your right to be here thing. So I would tell a brand new grad, earn your right to be there, and that doesn't mean the cool kids. It has nothing to do with that. What it means is show or show you want to. Be there, be prepared, ask questions, be forthcoming, be yourself. So all of these things are pieces of advice I wish someone had given to me. I benefited in the fact that I came from some experience in healthcare, so I didn't have this like super green mentality where I didn't even really know how to introduce myself to a patient. But I also didn't realize that it was okay to be a new grad. I felt like I better come in here and act like I know something, and then on my way to work every day, I'm nervous that I might kill somebody. That made no sense. I should have come in there like, hey, listen, I don't know much, but I'll show you what I know, and then the rest of it, if you can help me, I'm happy to learn. And had I taken that approach, I would have gotten a lot less bruises along the way. So I would tell them, listen, get a lot less bruises and just ask questions and talk and interact and see where you want to go. And don't think that wherever you are in day one needs to necessarily be where you are a year or 2 years from the day you start your nursing career. Because not all of us find our niche right out the gate. Some of us takes a couple of hops around.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we have someone who's managed that, right? They came in with that mindset. They were humbled. They learned. They're got their experience in at the hospital, and they are that nurse. Like, my calling is to travel. Like, I really I want to travel. The process is obviously very different from getting a perm position for the most part. One of that being the interview, right? For the most part, those interviews are going to be over the phone, right? It's not like you're not getting to go into the hospital. You're not getting to sit down with a hiring manager,
Gotta be charming.
whoever, you're right. And so phone interviews can be scary, almost scarier than walking in. Having coached nurses right here too through travel in their careers, what would be some tips that you have? How do you prepare for a phone interview as a nurse? What is the thing that you want to make sure you're getting smart on when you're ready to find your travel contract?
So especially in the last 5 years, we've gone much more to phone and video meetings, video calls, telephone calls. And so we need to learn a real basic thing for me, which is absolutely you can do a phone interview in your jammies. But I can hear if you're doing a phone interview in your jammies. Right? If I'm talking to you. It's just the truth. It's that whole customer service thing. I can hear if you're smiling. It's the same concept. So my suggestion is no. Prepare yourself like you're going to an in-person interview. Because if you look the part, then you feel the part, and you sound like it. Because not only do you not have the benefit of your body language and sort of that rapport that you gain when you're face-to-face with an individual, you have to try to gain that just in your words, which means that you actually have to work harder. You think like, oh, thank God I don't have to worry about if I have to go find a business suit. No, don't worry about that. Worry about, do you know how to narrate your practice? In other words, can you put into words what you take for granted as your skills?
Mm-hmm.
As nurses, we go in and we do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about what we do. We just do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And a telephone interview requires you to be able to articulate that to another person in a way that they can understand and have some form of natural flow to it and organization. And as nurses, we're not used to that. We're a hands-on profession. And so if we haven't had practice at that or haven't been advised that that is going to be an expectation, certainly that can be an overwhelming and daunting task to have our first telephone interview.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interviews are nerve-wracking as it is. So taking the time to prepare, and not obviously not something I would have even thought about. Yeah, you go in and you do.
That's right.
It's especially if you're working in a really fast-paced hospital or unit, you can't just articulate everything you're going to do and narrate it. But when you're on the phone trying to get this job, you're gonna have to show your skill verbally, right?
That's it, right? You just hit the nail on the head. You cannot show your skill. And so, part of my role here has been to clinically evaluate different nurses, and I do that over the telephone. Yeah. And so that's why I know how important that is. And many times I have to remind nurses, I get it. I know this. I just give me a second. I know this. And there's all of the, I am certain that you do, but I need to be able to assess your level of knowledge of this, and so there, you have to give me something. You have to be able to talk me through it to a point where you can demonstrate a certain level of competency, and then they realize I've never ever had to tell anybody how to, or what this looks like, or what the movements, the steps I would take in something, and so it takes a different kind of preparedness, a telephone interview versus in person, certainly for a clinical role.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, kind of to sum that up, one, definitely dress for the part.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you're, like you said, you want to, it changes how you feel about that moment, about that conversation, about yourself. Right. It gives you a little oomph of confidence, whether they can see you or not. And taking the time to prepare and I would say ask questions, if I would add that if you know someone who's a travel nurse, going back to what you said earlier, like talk to other people, get to know their experience. If you know someone who happened to have completed a travel contract, they likely had an interview. How did that go? How did their interview go? What did they talk about? What questions were asked? So that you can then take a step back and say, how do I articulate what it is that I do?
It's super important for, I think, a nurse, if I were interviewing for a travel position and it was over the telephone and so forth, I want to get the answers right, like we all do during an interview. But watching this process take place, the other thing is, in talking with other people that have gone through that experience, you also want to try to identify what questions you have about it. Yeah. Because it's not just how to answer questions, it's also how to ask questions. Because you are embarking, travel nursing is, I am normally, if it's not a local assignment, I am picking up, I'm packing some stuff, I'm going to a place, I'm committing to a certain period of time, new people, new faces, new experience.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal. It's not, I'm going to the hospital down the street, and if I don't like that one, I'll go around the corner and to the other one. It's a different experience. So you don't know, you have to ask good questions. And if you've never taken a travel assignment, speak with travelers. Yeah. What should I know about this? Did you ask them what they're going to be doing about I didn't even think of that. I didn't know that was a thing. Well, this is a very important piece of information. And so now you have the one up that your friend didn't have when they interviewed. In the dressing the part, it sounds silly. When you said it, I thought, oh, that's so silly. And I stick to it because it also helps you maintain a certain level of professionalism. I would encourage anybody that is wanting to get a travel assignment. They're dealing with recruiters. It's a very different kind of thing. You're usually not on your speaking to the director of a unit like most of us are used to in traditional interviews. But even then, although it's a safe space and you can be open and you can be flexible, and a recruiter's a bit of a more casual, don't become so casual that then we wonder your level of professionalism, because at the end of the day, you are representing yourself as a nurse, and you're representing your agency as well. You're no longer just a solo employee, right? And so I mention that because I've seen it. I have myself been guilty of, you know what, I need to talk a little bit further out with this nurse because I'm sort of catching a vibe and they're talking to somebody else. They put me on hold 3 times. There's 10 people talking in the background. I'm sorry, is that a bag of chips? Can I call you back after your snack? It's that kind of conversation. And I think that it's because we've gotten a little bit too cash if it's not an in-person interview. And I would encourage a nurse to remember that it's a nursing profession and we should behave as such. And I think we're getting a little bit further than is my comfort zone. I want us to go a little bit. I sound so old-fashioned and terrible. I feel like it's my mother, but the truth is that I think that is, we're lacking that a little bit because that is an expectation, right? I can be cash like that, but then it becomes a habit. Now you go, what if the facility wants to interview? There are many travel positions that the facility says, thanks agency, you screened out the people, you handpicked ones for us. This is the last stop before they start. I'd like the manager of the unit to talk to them. And now all of a sudden you're talking to somebody else who isn't maybe your recruiter or somebody you've worked with for the last 10 assignments of your life. It's a brand new person. And then one day you have the potential of meeting them in person. And now you're going to be caring for other human beings in front of that. But see what I mean? And at the end of the day, as many nurses and hospitals as there are in the world, it's tiny, this world. Healthcare industry, and I'm sure other industries, but this is mine, is tiny. We cross paths across hundreds of miles, and you never would have dreamed that you would see that person again. And so if you play the part professionally and you know who you are and you present yourself well from day one and each day, and not just give it up after that day, but and each day, you have nothing to worry about. So I strongly encourage that sort of, let's get a little more traditional in it so that we don't take missteps that are unnecessary ones that could affect us somewhere down the line.
I think that's great advice, right? At the end of the day, there is so much change happening, and there are some things that are going to change and stay different, and then there are some things that maybe we want to carry forward and keep a part of our behaviors, our habits, our approach, and how we do things, right? Ultimately, like patient-centered care is one of those things that hopefully never changes, right?
That is the thing.
So I love that. Kind of moving into the next steps. Let's say that, you did amazing at your interview, your phone interview went great, you got the offer, you took it, and now you're getting ready to go, right? Let's say home is in New York and you're traveling down to Georgia or Florida, what advice do you have there, right? Because we all know, I've lived in several different states. I know you've lived in several different states, and you don't necessarily even have to leave the state to feel like you're in a whole different culture, community, and so there is an adjustment when you travel, not just from a professional perspective, but also personal perspective. So what advice do you have for that first big step when you're getting ready to go somewhere new, you took the offer, and now you're, a couple days out from starting your assignment?
Know that you're about to embark on an adventure that is going to require you not just to learn new hospital protocols, new cabinets and where the equipment is stored, new names and physicians, but also a culture. And it's not just the culture from the new city, right? So clearly certain places in New York going to certain places in Georgia, like your example was, could feel like you're going to Mars, and vice versa. I mean, even the culture in the unit, in the team. You don't have to be, if you are a traveler, you come with an open mind. This is an adventure. I'm here to bring assistance, knowledge, and experience, and to gain some as well. If you are an island of one, it will be very challenging to have a fulfilling travel assignment. I've had multiple conversations with travelers that are just not, I don't know if I'm feeling this assignment, and so forth and so on. And some of it is they haven't formed any alliances. They haven't become part of that team. And so I would, I discourage not to approach it from the standpoint of new opportunities and a positive experience of growth and adventure versus I could do anything for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm gonna go there. Listen. If I learn 3 names of people going, I'm good because before I really get to know them and they get to know me, I'm already on to my next assignment. Even if you are a traveler who likes to hop around that way, it shouldn't feel to the team that you're joining as you're hopping around.
Sure.
It doesn't. It's not. Nursing is a team sport. So you just can't come in there and sort of plow through an assignment. It won't be beneficial for anybody.
Yeah.
So I'd say open mind and absorb some things and carry it with you to the next.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
No,
that's how I would handle it, and I feel like the nurses I talk to that really enjoy this type of nursing and traveling, that's why they enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that reframe because at the end of the day, kind of going back to what you said around this being healthcare small, right? You never know who you're going to run into next, and when you're a travel nurse, you're making that world even smaller because you're going out and you're going to it, right? So if you take that as an opportunity, like you said, an adventure, an opportunity, not just to get it over with for 3 months, but to really reframe it as in what can I learn while I'm here and what can I help give, right? How can I be of service? And whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, what do I bring to the table? What relationships can I build while I'm here? How can I be of service to my patients, to my team, be that a temporary team for 3 months or the team I've been a part of for the last 3 years, right? So I really like that reframe because it is easy to have that almost disconnect, right? Okay, I just have to get through these 3 months. And sometimes that's what gets you through an assignment. Let's be real, right? Like sometimes that is the thing that gets you through the assignment. And you know what? At that point, maybe it's okay. Maybe that's what you need to get you through it. But if you go in first and try to always maintain that mindset of this is an opportunity for me to show up. It's an opportunity for me to build relationships, to help out, to be of service, which again is the thing, right? The number one thing we want to keep throughout nursing care is that patient-centered care. It'll make that assignment that much more valuable, right?
Every pair of shoes is not going to be cute and comfy, and so sometimes you deal with one or the other. The goal, of course, is to have both, but it's a real tiny sort of cycle. So my point is, if I go into a travel assignment and I put a bad taste in their mouth about travelers because I'm either not helpful or I'm standoffish or I come with how do y'all do this here? Because that's not how we do it, and our way is better. All of those things that you sort of hear along the way that I think is true in any industry. If you come in as that guy,
Sure.
You don't want to be that guy. So if you do those things, you put a bad taste in their mouth about travelers. Now I'm the next traveler that comes to the facility. Now, well, I have a great attitude and I'm ready to be part of your team and help out. And I don't realize that I'm coming into this environment that has a bad taste in their mouth because their last traveler did, right? So it's this tiny circle. So you're kind of ruining it for me. So can you do okay? So I can do okay. So the business does okay. It's that kind of thing. And then we can keep these travel assignments. I always talk to travel nurses in a way to remind them that even if it's a temporary team, it's a team today. And so things can change with people's lives and people's health in a split second. And these are going to be your comrades when this happens.
Yeah.
And they're also going to be the person that you sort of chat with later. And hopefully that's a celebratory conversation, but it may not be. It may be a real crucial, difficult conversation. And so those people next to you, again, they're your team.
Yeah.
Even though you may have learned their name 3 shifts ago, they're your team. If you go into it as such, you will be more successful in this path, and you will help hospitals continue to succeed, because honestly, travelers are what's getting hospitals through some really tough times with staffing and numbers right now. And we want to keep encouraging them to know that yes, the travel nurse is there to help.
Yeah.
And so that's how we show that. That's how we prove it. We can do great all day long in the staffing industry, but our travel healthcare workers, our travel nurses, they really are the ones that make that happen for us. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to build on this piece of the conversation, kind of what you talked about, right? Let's say that and this happens, right? I've heard it from nurses. They're going in, and that hospital maybe didn't have a great experience, or maybe they're wary of travelers, or whatever, right? And it's creating an environment that maybe is a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you're first getting there, if it's your first assignment. So for that nurse that's there, that feels like, ugh, I'm an outcast. They don't want me here. I feel uncomfortable, which, you know, we want to be real here, right? That happens. And so what would be the thing that you tell that person that's trying to be helpful, that's trying to be a part of the team and feels like, you know what, I feel like I'm going up against a brick wall? What do you tell that person?
You know that old saying, like, everybody has their thing. Your thing, if it is the way you approach situations. So if you're that person who's always there, Susie on the spot, ready to help. What can I do? Let me help you. I just finished those patients. I'm ready for the next task. I don't complain when I get an assignment, even if this is the fourth time, fifth time I'm feeling like they're giving me always the most terrible assignments. Then that is your thing. If your thing is your skill set and your experience, and that's what you bring to the table, and that's the reception you're getting, then that is your thing. Either way, stand on your thing. I have a significant amount of experience as a charge nurse. I come from a very large ER, and we are a very fast-paced environment, and we didn't really welcome and embrace travelers for a long time. In fact, there was a lot of eye rolling and all of those things whenever we were told we would get a traveler. And I will tell you that as we got one traveler, and she came in, and man, she was smart. She was newer stuff. And then all of a sudden we realized that, oh, how long have you been with us now? And this is my third time. We didn't even know you could extend the contract because we didn't really work with travel. Oh, okay. Well, that's neat. And she became one of our resources. I had forgotten that she was one of our travelers. She had been there so long. I was in charge. And so I assigned her an orientee because the person's preceptor had gone. And all of a sudden I'm realizing now a traveler is oriented. And long story short, she ended up becoming permanent staff with us eventually. She helped us get there. Now, we would not have been afforded that opportunity because I do think that it was a win for us and not really so much for her because she would have left maybe at the end of one contract. But we were afforded that opportunity because she used her thing, and she came with a solid set of skills. She was real honest about her limitations. She was very forthcoming with questions, and what she knew well, and she was happy to share it and happy to apply it. And there was no scorekeeping. She truly was there, showed she was there for the patients, and it was too hard to not feel like, man, what an asset. Anywhere you go, if you feel like you're an asset, if you're standing on something solid, stand on it. It will come eventually. If it doesn't, what a terrible experience. I would hate for that to be the case. I'm sure that's possible, but I think that is rare. I think that generally speaking, you stand on that, and this will be a good experience because it is mutual benefit.
I think the two things I'm really taking from that to kind of put a summary to that is, one is remember why you're there, right? Remember why you're there. And if it's a great experience, great. If it's a little bit more challenging and it's tougher, if you can keep coming back to your why, remember why you're there, and show up the way that you want to be seen and perceived and the way that you want your patients to see you, great. And then the second part of that is know that perhaps you're paving the way for the next traveler to not have that.
That's right.
You can be that change. You can be that trigger that ultimately shows, no, like, we're here to help. That's our intention. That's my why. I want to help the patients and I want to help you, right? So I think those are two really good pieces to remember if you're on an assignment where things aren't going as smoothly as you'd hoped, right?
I stop short on that. It's almost the caveat. If it's not going as well as it could, or that you feel, you're allowed to speak about that, right? We do everything that we can to support people to know that it's not only it's safe to be honest. We encourage us. We want to know that that's out there. How are travelers being received? What can we do differently? What went well on your assignment? What didn't? And are we in control of any of that? I mean, this is a fluid situation. Healthcare is fluid. Every time we think that we're like, okay, we got this, now we figured it all out, we didn't. Something changed. So For sure, there's that one little piece of, and give some feedback, absorb, like engage enough so that you can really tell us good, bad, or indifferent, but tell us something, and that way we can all get better for it.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up actually, because at the end of the day, right, we're not at the facility, whether it's you talking to your recruiter or if you're talking to a clinical nurse liaison, right, if you're talking to Emmi or whoever, right, but the person at the agency, that's your point of contact, they're your support, right, and that's what we aim to be is to be there as your support, because we know it's a big step and it's a challenge and it's something new, and it can be smooth sailing or it can be a bumpy road, but we don't know which it is unless we hear about it, right? So I agree with that 100%, sharing that feedback and saying something, right, so that we can have a conversation around it and see what can we do better.
Of course.
So I think that's probably one of the most important pieces.
We are the resource.
Yeah.
We want to be. We're here. That's why we hire so many different skill sets, so that we can try to. Somebody here should be able to help with that, but we have to know what it is that you need help with.
Yeah.
Giant piece of travel. I think the most experienced traveler, that is probably what they know better than anybody. They know who to go to, when to go to them, who their resources are. There's a sign right there.
Yeah.
That's why they do, is because it's so important to use all those resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So kind of taking a dive into a whole different direction. So we've talked about we talked about school, you know, how to get through school. And when you first get there, the best way to start building some relationships, remembering your why. If you're starting travel, you know, what does it take to be successful in an interview? But going back to the very beginning of our conversation where we talked about nursing does have 1,000,001 career paths, you know, what resources or you know, pointers would you give to someone who's like, you know what, I'm ready to get into the next thing, and they're, you know, I don't know if this happens, but like if I go to a store and there's too many options, I don't know what I'm gonna pick because there's too many options, right? And I don't know where to start, so I start feeling a little overwhelmed. And I can imagine, not really, but I can imagine that if you're looking at the nursing field and you're like, I want to do something different within nursing, I could go back to school, I could become I could start teaching in nursing school, maybe I want to do telehealth, maybe I want to do home health, maybe I want to do travel, so that's just one of the mini version of all those options. Where would you get started to find out what is my next step?
I'm going to tell you, human experience is the number one thing for me. If you can talk to somebody who did it, now clearly they're not you doing it, so there's always going to be a little bit of a different perspective, but certainly they can give you some basic idea. The thing with nursing is you can do it yourself. I wonder if I want to do telehealth. Go do telehealth for a while. See if that's something you like. Maybe psych is my new thing. I feel like, check it out. The sort of side note on that is, if you decide like, never mind, I actually want to settle down in this one area, back to square one, you have to be a little bit cautious, because depending on the audience, 3 months here, 3 months here, 3 months here, in different types of nursing, sometimes people have some questions. Now, is it an acceptable response if you get asked that question? I was trying to find where my niche was. I know that we have a lot of flexibility in nursing. Certainly, you can explain it away, but I encourage you to be prepared to explain it away, right? Because we happen to have a profession that if you want to maybe check out and dip your toe, you can dip your toe.
Yeah.
The opportunity exists. Some place may require you to have, if you haven't done it for 6 months. But another place is like, listen, I'll teach you. Come on over. You're a quick learner. You're motivated. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So talk to people who've done it and see if you can find it. If really after that conversation, you're like, it still seems interesting, go try it out.
Love that. It's great advice. I think also too, now we have so many communities, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever. There's so many communities and on where you can get on a board and have a conversation around it and find someone, even if they're in a whole nother state, that can give you some insight into that. Yeah. So, yay. All right. Well, I hope that this was an informative session. Emmi, thank you so much for sharing all of your insight with us, with our audience, with our nurses. Anything else that you would want to kind of leave everyone with to wrap things up?
I guess for me,
I mentioned this thing about patient-centered care. I want to drive the point home that we went through an experience together as a planet where the nursing profession, it was the first time in all these years of healthcare that I was ever called a hero. And I think that if you ask any nurse, the overwhelming majority of us don't feel that we're heroes. COVID certainly didn't make us heroes. In fact, there have been a lot of painful things or end results sort of that came from that, and certainly also a lot of growth and introspection, don't get me wrong, but it took a different turn. It sort of shook our world a bit.
Yeah.
So I think that I would leave you with the idea of, thanks the world for thinking that somehow that we're nurses, but at the end of the day we're doing what other people do, which is you go where you're supposed to go. Right? There are nurses out there I know that are doing it for whatever their alternate motive. Maybe it's the money, maybe it's the flexibility. Those numbers are very few. I think that it still stands, regardless of anything, that if you meet a nurse, they're doing it because they're supposed to be a nurse.
Yeah.
We want to be nurses. We may be tired, but we want to be nurses, and we have a passion for that, and we can appreciate each other as nurses, and we appreciate those people who are out there supporting us nurses, because we were a little bit shook, and we're still here, and we've got all kinds of different people serving as a resource and backup for us. And so I say, if you want to become a nurse and this is your calling, forget the politics, forget what we've been through. This is your calling. If you're already a nurse and you feel like, man, things are so different, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, then do something else in the same form. We've got plenty. Ask questions, make calls, create. We can do all of those things. Nurses no longer have to wear white pantyhose and a tight white starched cap and be in a hospital. So remember how flexible that we are. If you're a nurse, you're a nurse, and then be the type of nurse that you're supposed to be. So that's my advice. That's my thought that I will drop there at the end.
I love it. Thank you, Emmi.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Vanessa.